Part 292. Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 2918. Around Yushi, patrol song brought the soldiers down the mountain with a dark face, and Bai Shan and the others were waiting at the foot of the mountain. When he was idle and bored, Man Bao dug up some visible medicinal herbs around him. There were some herbs in the encyclopedia that had not been included before, but she did not need to include them in the encyclopedia. She also stuffed one for Keek. They have click points. Although this thing is given to the encyclopedia, the other party may not study it, but after taking a photo and uploading it, as long as someone clicks to view it, she can occasionally get a little point. Although there are very few, for the current Man Bao, it is not even a mosquito's leg, but idle is idle. And the excess medicinal materials can also be taken home to dry and concocted. Bai Shan also became bored after looking around Sun Likang and Jia Likang twice, so he helped Man Bao to dig some herbs, and when he saw Song Patrol lead people down the mountain, he clapped his hands and got up. When Jia Likang saw Song Patrol and the others came down from the mountain road leading to Xiaoliu village, he knew that Bai Shan had already made arrangements, and his face was even more gray. Bai Shan invited Song to inspect and showed him the two blueprints on the grass. This is the layout of Daying village and Xiaojing village. The place marked in red in this county is the home of the bandits. The two villages under Sun Likang's jurisdiction have never been to this county, so I can only draw a picture based on his description, which may not be accurate, so this county wants to take action against Daying village and Xiaojing village first. How do you plan to capture it? Catch. Inspector Song frowned and looked at the two pictures, and finally settled on the picture of Daying village and Xiaojing village. Sir, although there are only 38 gangsters in these two villages, there are a total of 61 households. Get up, we more than 100 people can't catch anyone at all. There may also be a fight with the villagers. This is a big accident. No matter which side Bai Shan is injured, he will not be able to eat and walk around. That's right, it's Bai Shan, not Song Patrol. Bai Shan naturally knew that he turned around twice, but still said, this opportunity is rare. If Jia Dalan doesn't contact them for a long time, they will definitely guess that something happened to him, and it will be difficult to arrest them again. If there is a fight. Bai Shan lowered his eyes and said, you try not to hurt anyone, this county will stand up for you. Inspector Song looked at Bai Shan in surprise. Did the county magistrate plan to take risks? Inspector Song rolled his eyes and nodded in response. Man Bao, who was watching, asked curiously, are you going to rush in like this? Bai Shan glanced at her and said, I'm not stupid. He said to Song Patrol, everyone brainstorms and uses several methods to capture people as safely as possible. Song Patrol, for example. Bai Shan pointed to the two families on the edge of Xiaojing village and said, for example, these two live a little far from the village, let Feng Das Han call people out, and you will tie them up as soon as they come out. Block it up, for example, in this household, all three of their brothers are on the list, let Feng Das Han go and call out all three. These three households are relatively close together. I asked Chief Jia Li, and Xiaojing village shouldn't know about him going out to the county town today. Let his son go and call out all three of them. Song Patrol /U0026 Dongxian Wei, so treacherous. Not only Xiaojing village, but Daying village can also use this method. When everyone who can be called out is caught, the rest will have to sneak in. As long as these 15 households go well, the remaining 18 households will be easy. When it gets dark, everyone in the village will fall asleep. At that time, we will sneak in, 7 people will be put in one household, 4 people will be arrested, and 3 more people will be arrested. Be alert to intimidate others. In short, try to catch as many people as possible. Captain Dong Xian asked, would you like to ambush someone at the intersection? Bai Shan frowned at the drawing and asked, We don't have many people left. Where do you think we should arrange people? Inspector Song only had 100 people under his command, Bai Shan and the others brought 30 yeomen and guards, and 30 people were transferred from patrol Luo before, which was not many. Man Bao raised his hand and said, I can help guard the intersection. Anyway, you will be sent to the intersection if you are injured. Bai Shan glanced at her and said, I included you when I made the plan. 7 people were sent in each household, and in the end there were 36 people left. At least 5 people were needed to guard each intersection. But the village, unlike in the city, they can still cross the fields, so these places have to be guarded, and people have to be assigned to guard those who have been caught. There are at most 30 people who can use it, that is, 6 directions. Bai Shan did the math and found that there were barely enough people, so he asked a few people, where do you think it's best for them to stay? Lieutenant Dong Xian said quickly, it's better for you to stand guard at the intersection with Lord Zhou. It's too dangerous to go in. Bai Shan shook his head, I'll go in with you. There's not enough manpower. The arrest needs to be done quickly and must not be delayed. He looked at Song Patrol, there are 7 people in each team, you must arrange it, and each team must have a leader. Song Patrol can only respond with a yes. A group of people quietly touched Xiaojing village. They did not dare to sway outside, so they hid in the woods. Bai Shan glanced at the quiet and serene Xiaojing village, where the smoke curled up, turned back to look at the crowd and said, be sure to block your mouth after catching someone, and make a quick decision. He called out the people arranged by Song Patrol and said, now that the sun has not yet set, you should lure out those who can be seduced first, and the rest will wait for the night. If there is a big movement, you must start taking action no matter what the situation is, and immediately retreat after you catch someone, and we will meet here. Bai Shan looked up at the selected squad leaders and asked, remember? The captains lowered their voices and said, remember. Bai Shan was very satisfied and let them act separately. He followed them to Xiaojing village first, and Feng Dashan walked out tremblingly under their eyes. Bai Shan stopped him, patted his shoulder gently and said, do you know that I am the only one who called you out of so many people? Feng Dashan shook his head. Bai Shandao, because the county believes that your conscience is not shattered, so I am willing to give you the opportunity to make a contribution to the crime. I hope you will not disappoint the expectations of the county. Feng Dashan nervously swallowed his saliva and asked, can I make meritorious deeds? Of course, Bai Shan said, as long as you help us catch them, you have done a great service. Although it won't save you from punishment, your punishment will definitely be lighter than the one you should have sentenced. Feng Dashan's expression became firm, and he nodded seriously, I understand, I will take the blame and make merit. Bai Shan nodded with satisfaction, and asked someone to take him there. Only then did Bai Shan look at Jia Erlang, the son of Jia Likane, who was beside him. It's too late tonight, I'll add more tomorrow, good night. Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 2919. Jia Erlang knelt on the ground and shivered. Bai Shan squatted in front of him, reached out and patted his shoulder and said, your father said that none of you participated and didn't know it, but this county doesn't quite believe it. Jia Erlang swallowed nervously, and looked at Bai Shan with weak hands and feet, who was also staring at him closely, so you have to use your actions to prove that you are not one of them. He said, I can allow you to lure people when it is darker, but if you are still found, I will think you did it on purpose. Bai Shan said softly, you are showing them off on purpose so that they can escape. Jia Erlang shook his head nervously, how could he do it on purpose? No, he won't show his tricks for the other party to see, they are not a group, how could he be a group with those bastards? Jia Erlang was drooling nervously, and while he kept emphasizing in his heart, he assured Bai Shan, sir, I will definitely lead people out. The sky was getting dark, and the soldiers of each team quietly approached Xiaojing village and Dying village after receiving the order. On the side of Dying village, because the people who can be used as bait have not arrived yet, they are only lurking in the predetermined position to wait and be vigilant. Once an accident occurs on the side of Xiaojing village, this side can quickly respond. On the side of Xiaojing village, those who guarded the intersection went to guard the intersection, and the rest were ambushed at the designated positions as instructed. Two teams of people followed behind Feng Das Han, and found a piece of grass beside the road to squat. At this time, the grass was lush and the sky was a little dark. Not to mention that they were squatting or standing. Won't find them. They motioned to Feng Das Han to find someone. Feng Das Han swallowed his saliva and took 2 small steps forward. One of the yamen couldn't see it, he stretched out his hand and pushed him, and said in a low voice, "Hurry up, it will be dark if you wait any longer. It will delay the affairs of the adults, and you will not be able to finish eating." Feng Das Han could only speed up his pace and knock on the door of the last house at the end of the village. This area is a bit out of the way, so there are only 2 families here, or 2 cousins, a little distance from other families in the village. But no matter how far away, if there is a howl here, not only the few households in the past will hear it, but the whole village can hear it. The village is not very big. Feng Das Han walked to the door. After luck, he raised his hand and banged on the door. The sound was so loud that even the people next door who were separated by a long distance could hear it. "Who is it?" the people in the courtyard shouted angrily. "Knock what? Do you pay if the door is knocked down?" "Gao Feng, open the door." Feng Das Han's mouth twitched, but he still managed to hold back his expression and shouted loudly, "It's me." "Oh, it's Brother Das Han, why are you here?" Feng Das Han said, "The boss has something to say, let's go out of the village to talk." "Okay." De Feng thought he disliked someone in his family, didn't care, and didn't leave a word for his family. He just turned around and left with Feng Das Han. The people in the family are also used to it. They were about to fall asleep, but now they are woken up and have no response at all. There was also movement in the house next door. A person opened the door and came out. In the dim sky, he couldn't see the face of the person, but he could see the outline. The other party shouted at the side, "Gao Feng, who is it?" Feng Das Han said, "Erxin, come here together." The other party was happy, and he closed the door and walked over. Both of them were a little excited and asked Feng Das Han, "Brother Das Han, is the boss okay in the county seat? He's considered an official, right? Are you there? I really didn't expect the brothers to have such a good fortune. Will the boss still take us all to serve as yamen in the future? I made money by not being a yamen. With the boss here, won't we walk sideways when we go to the county town?" The two of them were very excited, and Feng Das Han didn't need to answer at all. Feng Das Han breathed a sigh of relief. He felt that his voice was trembling now. In just a few words, they walked to the small road and passed 2 groups of people squatting in the grass. Dai Feng just turned his head and asked Feng Das Han, "Brother Das Han, the boss asked you to come back, is it just to take us to the county seat?" "Of." The yamen squatting in the grass secretly said, "It's beautiful to think about." The 3 of them walked over, and they quietly stood up from the grass and made a gesture towards the opposite side. The 2 groups of men hunched over and rushed up from behind, directly pressing the person who had just walked over to the ground. The other party only had time to make a short dash before his mouth was covered. One of the yamen shoved the smelly socks that had been prepared long ago into the other's mouth, while the other 2 held the ropes and tightly pressed the person's hands and feet. When they were tied up, the other 2 held the man down hard and did not give him a chance to move. The remaining 2 stood on guard, looking around, especially in the direction of Xiaojing village, so that no one would be suspicious. The same arrangement was made for the people holding Erxin and the team. They were in the woods just now, but they followed the instructions of the adults and practiced how to tie people according to their orders and acted as captured prisoners. It hurts. The two teams swiftly tied up the people and blocked their mouths, then lifted them up and threw them into the grass, and it was over. Feng Das Han, who was beside him, was already sitting on the ground in fright. When the two teams finished tying up, they found that Feng Das Han had not moved, so they stretched out their feet and kicked him in anger. "Get up, it's not you who arrested people, we didn't even sit on the ground." "Okay, okay." Another team of yeomen held the soldiers, and also pulled Feng Das Han up, and whispered, "Hurry up to another house, try to lead people out, wait a while, I may be suspicious if it's too late. When it's getting dark, everyone has to go to bed, even if you are a bastard, you don't come to the door to go out at night, right?" The yeoman asked Feng Das Han, "When do you usually call someone at the latest?" Feng Das Han said tremblingly, "Also, it's around the time of Hi. She was late at night for them, and those who had a good night's sleep were about to fall asleep." The yeoman glanced at Feng Das Han and said, "Now think about a few more excuses, you must deceive people. Feng Das Han should go down." One team stayed behind, guarding the opening and guarding the two people who were arrested, while the other team took Feng Das Han to another place to join the two teams. When they hid in the grass, they signaled Feng Das Han to call someone quickly. It was completely dark by now. Feng Das Han swallowed his saliva, his legs trembled a little, and he said, "Dazu and his three brothers are different. They have three in their family. Don't talk nonsense, just go if you want. As long as you don't show your guilt, they won't think about Jia Dalin's arrest." Feng Das Han could only go to the village slowly. At the same time, Bai Shan looked up at the sky, turned his head and said to Jia Erlang, "You can go. See you at 6 p.m. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment." Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 2920. Jia Erlang's legs were weak, and his knees became numb. He couldn't get up for a while, so a soldier stepped forward and dragged him up. Bai Shan put his hand on Jia Erlang's shoulder and said to them, "Take care of him and don't scare people." But Jia Erlang only felt that the shoulder that Bai Shan was holding was aching and painful, which made him wake up all of a sudden, did not dare to neglect, and bent a little. "Sir, I will go right now, you can rest assured." Just when Feng Das Han was standing at the door of the three Feng Dazu brothers, Jia Erlang also swallowed and stood in front of a room. The sound was not very loud, and no one could hear it except the next door neighbor. In the dark of night, Feng Das Han whispered to Feng San, who opened the door, "Where are your eldest brother and second brother? Call them, and I have something to tell you." Feng San asked, "Is the boss back with something to say?" Feng Das Han replied vaguely, "Hurry up, I will go to Dying Village to call someone later." Feng San turned around and called the two older brothers out. The three brothers kicked the door and left with Feng Das Han. Jia Erlang's slightly pale face could not be seen clearly in the night. He said to the person who came to open the door, "My father is looking for you and let you go now." The other party was stunned for a moment and then scolded, "It's getting dark, won't we see you tomorrow?" Jia Erlang's face turned pale, but fortunately no one could see in the darkness. He forced himself to calm down and said, "If you want to go, go, so much nonsense? It's not just you." Jia Erlang listened to Bai Shan's turn, walked to the other door without trembling as much as possible, knocked on the door, and said the same thing again. He knocked on the doors of 3 houses in total. Although the 3 were very dissatisfied and scolded, they still followed Jia Erlang out. They did not take the path and went directly through the wheat field. Now that the wheat field has just been harvested, the field has not yet been filled with water, so it is very dry, so I boldly walked forward in the direction of Dying Village, which was much faster than walking. Jia Erlang led the way in front, and after jumping off a ridge, he increased his speed. The three behind him scolded twice, complaining that he was walking too fast, and he would not hold a torch when he came over to call someone. Then he jumped off the ridge, and the result was before they could stand still, they were thrown to the ground by the people who rushed out. The three of them covered their mouths before they could make any sound, their hands were twisted behind their backs, their heads were pressed down hard, their entire faces were pressed against the crud, and they were still stuck to the soil, which was cold and cold. They wanted to struggle, but their lower back was pressing against one of their legs, and they couldn't exert any strength. And when they started, on the other side of Xiaojing village, the captured soldiers and Yamen also held down the three Feng Dazu brothers who came out. Feng Dazu reacted and struggled violently when he was being held down. He didn't break free from the person who was holding him, but he took the person who was holding him and ran into the person holding Feng San. When their brothers came out, they came too close, and the arrested people were crowded together. When he bumped into the formation, it was a bit messy. The person who was holding him didn't have time to remove the dirty cloth from his mouth, and ran out with the stinky cloth in his mouth. As a result, after only running 20 steps, an arrow came and hit him directly in the chest. He stopped and looked down at the arrow in his chest in disbelief. The pain only reflected in his brain, and he widened. Eyes rolled back. Feng Dazu and most of the soldiers and Yamen couldn't see at night, they could only see blurry figures, and they didn't react when they saw Feng San fell down. They still had to jump up and hold down the person to realize that something was wrong. This person struggled. Why is the strength so small? Bai Shan, who was less than 30 steps away, put down his bow and said to Wei Dong, "There is too much movement here. The village has probably heard the movement and is preparing for the next move. Oi, village over there. If this side can be controlled, the other side will not move." The Yamen and the soldiers only knew that they were here when they heard Bai Shan and Dong Xianwei talking. They hurriedly bundled the two Feng Dazu brothers and threw them into the grass and came to obey. According to Feng San's soldiers, he said, "Sir, Feng San is out of breath. That arrow was too accurate, it hit the center of the heart, blood is flowing now, and people will lose their anger soon, and I don't know if the county magistrate's arrow is blind, or if it's so accurate, not to mention the Yamen soldiers who obey orders in front of him, even Lieutenant Dong Xian is terrified." Hearing that, Feng Dazu, who was thrown in the grass, couldn't help moving his body, but his hands were tied backwards and his feet were tied up. It was impossible to get up, let alone see Feng San. The Yamen heard the movement and kicked him, leaving the two to drag the tied people to the intersection together, while the others went into the village with Bai Shan. The villagers of Xiaojing village did feel that something was wrong. The rustling of these movements tonight was very strange. Usually, if they make trouble, they don't care about their feelings. If they make trouble, they make a loud noise. Some people have already gone out of the house to check the situation at night, but they have not turned on the lights, and the night is a little dark tonight. Looking out, the shadows of the trees are shaking, it seems that someone is hiding inside, but it seems not. The person who came out swallowed his saliva and was a little nervous. He turned around and was about to go back into the house. Just at this moment, a screeching sound started, and a few dark shadows seemed to flash across the wall. He ran, but was held down, something stretched out and grabbed his mouth. He wanted to call a monster, but he didn't have time to make a sound. The people in the room were also a little alarmed, angry, and said, "What do you want to do if you don't sleep at night?" The person being held down struggled and wanted the people in the room to save him. As a result, he was held down after he moved, and a low voice rang in his ear, "Are you the boss?" "Huh, this is a human, not a monster?" The soldier was sure that this was the boss, so he looked at the room where he had just scolded and scolded. A few people looked at each other, and when they reached the window sill, two more quietly entered the room, and after a while, the door inside was kicked. He kicked it open, and the person who had been quiet inside jumped open the window and jumped out, but before he could stand still, he was kicked on the back and fell forward. Everyone jumped up and held it down, grabbed his hair and lifted it up. One of them blew the fire, and looked at his face. Feng Ergu. Seeing his reaction, the soldiers were sure, and immediately put a piece of cloth in his mouth, tied his hands, and took him away. Feng De sat on the ground beside him and looked at them in horror. The movement in the village gradually became louder, and Feng De finally reacted. He opened his mouth and was about to shout. A soldier kicked him rudely, and said with a fierce face, "Silence, the official is doing business. If you dare to shout, Lord will take you down." When the bandit accomplices were killed. See you at 10 p.m. Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 2921. He didn't dare to move immediately, but there was still a lot of noise from other parts of the village, and some people shouted loudly. Some people even lit torches, and when they saw who was coming to arrest people, they were shocked and angry, and they didn't know what to do. The yamen and the soldiers reprimanded them for squatting according to what Bai Shan had said. They only caught the gangsters, not their family members. More than one family was arrested. If there was only one family, although the villagers did not like these bastards, they would still stop the officers and soldiers from arresting people because of the same village. But looking around and listening to the voices from outside, it seemed that there were quite a few people arrested, so they hesitated and did not resist. The movement of Xiaojing village did not affect Dying village. Bai Shan was satisfied. He did not let the soldiers withdraw from Xiaojing village. Bai Shan took Feng Das Han and Jia Erlang to Dying village with his people, and after following a similar pattern, he arrested a few more people and started to act together. It was already late at night, and most of the villagers were in their sleep. The officers and soldiers jumped over the wall with torches and kicked in the door. When they caught suspicious people, they lit their faces with torches, and asked their names aloud. "Tie people away." Most of the dumbfounded family members did not respond. After they responded, they chased after them. They saw that there were so many soldiers with knives outside, and there were screaming and arresting sounds from all over the village. It was like being surrounded by people. Torches were lit everywhere, and there were sparks of fire in half of the village. Seeing movement in Xiaojing village, the soldiers and yamen escorted their prisoners to retreat in an orderly manner, and retreated to the intersection to meet Zhou Man. Man Bao squatted on the ground and felt that there were mosquitoes buzzing around her all the time. Even though she had a medicine bag on her body, occasionally mosquitoes would bite. Therefore, this medicine should still be set on fire, and the mosquitoes will be dispelled with the smell of smoke. Seeing that they brought the prisoners back, she said, "Leave 2 teams to guard, and the rest should reinforce Dying village." They carried Feng San over, and Man Bao looked at him with the light of the torch and said, "I'm out of breath, why did you use the arrow?" "The county magistrate shot," the soldier said excitedly. "Master Zhou didn't look at it. It was almost dark at the time, but the county magistrate was stunned to shoot through the heart." "Your archery is really good." The yamen explained, "This is the best way. This kid is very wild, the fields are vast, and the sky is dark. It really makes him turn around and run away. It will be difficult to catch him later." He said, "I really told him to run out and disturb the Dying village side. Tonight's action failed." Zhou Man nodded. Feng Dazu, who was lying on the ground, moved and looked at them resentfully. Man Bao looked down at him and felt that he looked familiar. He squatted down and looked at him carefully and said, "The person in the portrait." The yamen only glanced at him and said, "Yes, according to Feng Das Han's confession, he is one of Jia Dalan's confidants. Because his family has 3 brothers in it, everyone is afraid of their family. This person is one of Jia Dalan's right and left hands. Joe man, why didn't he take them to the county office? My lord guessed that he was specially left to manage their staff. If Jia Dalan has a firm foothold in the county office, then Feng Dazu can cooperate with him to do what they want to do. If Jia Dalan can't get along in the county office, he can also get the county. Yali withdrew and came back to continue taking over. Joe man looked at the Yaman in surprise, looked up and down and said, I think you are very similar to a Yaman named Zhao Wu. The Yaman seemed to have a toothache, and his mouth moved before he said, Master who is who, that is the younger brother, and the younger is Zhao Wen. Joe man, one literary and one martial arts, a good name. She looked down at the Feng Dazu brothers who were thrown on the ground side by side, looked at them and said, Your name is Feng Dazu, is your brother Feng Erju? The two brothers' mouths were gagged, so naturally they couldn't answer. Zhao Wen replied instead of them, Yes, Lord Zhou. Zhou Man sighed, It's really fate, the person who was hacked to death by you in Xiaoliu village is also called Erju. Feng Dazu still looked at her with hatred in his eyes, but Feng Erju shivered and his face turned pale. Zhou Man got up and looked at dying village. The movement over there was getting louder and louder, and they also heard someone shouting in the field. The people who were guarding the field heard the shouting, looked up, and saw a shadow rushing out in the dark, with shouting and chasing from behind, and they spread their legs to block the shadow. When the people approached, the shadow also saw them. As soon as he turned his steps, he stumbled and turned a small corner and continued to run. He was familiar with this place. Although he stumbled in the dark, he knew where the ridge was higher. Go down, spread your feet and continue to run. The people chasing behind fell to the ground with a thud, two people got up and continued chasing, and the other went to help the fallen person. Don't, it hurts so much, I can't move my legs. Dying village and Xiaojing village are now lit with torches and lamps. Soldiers and Yamen escort the captured people to the intersection. The villagers hold torches and slowly follow behind with wooden sticks and hose, one by one. Approaching the point, Bai Shan took Lieutenant Dong and Patrol Song out of Dying village, and walked to the soldiers to block them. The soldiers and the Yamen also lit the torches, which illuminated the faces of Bai Shan and the others so brightly that everyone could see the expression on his face even if they were far away. He was no longer the gentle and humble he had seen a few days ago, with a cold and serious expression on his face. The villagers were shocked by his expression and slowly stopped, but they still held up their torches and refused to retreat. Their family members were arrested, so of course they can't stop there. Some people are just assholes, and they keep causing trouble for their families, and the family members are angry, but more people still think that their children are okay, and those bad things are all people outside bring bad things, and they can't accept people being arrested. Bai Shan's eyes slid over their faces little by little, and he said solemnly, These people are all suspected of looting other villages, do you want to resist arrest? The villagers didn't say anything, but the first few people took another 2 steps forward with torches, and the people behind followed. Bai Shan sneered, raised his hand, and a team of 20 soldiers immediately raised their bows and arrows, drawing full bows at the villagers. The crowd was agitated, and the villagers walking in the front also changed their expressions. They could not help but step back slightly, but only a small step back. After they had reacted, they stopped again. See you at 11:30. Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 2922. Bai Shandao, anti-arrest, or for the bandits, this county can list ER and others as accomplices, even if you kill all of you, that's a military merit, a political achievement, not a fault. The crowd became more restless. But this county didn't do this. Instead, it tried everything possible to first come to investigate, grab the bandit leader, and then grab the confession before coming to arrest people. What is it for? Bai Shan looked at them coldly and said, "The county is willing to give you a chance to start over, but I wonder if you are willing to take this opportunity. Your Majesty, you may be mistaken. Although my son is lazy on weekdays, he is definitely not a bandit." Bai Shan sneered, did not respond to the sentence, but looked at them coldly and said, "Two villages so close together, such a large scale of people looting the village, don't believe this county, you don't know anything, they robbed, didn't you take home a little bit of the food and property that came back? This county is enough to open the door. If you don't want to accept it, I don't mind doing more military exploits." This time, the villagers took 3 steps back, looked at each other in dismay, and said nothing for a while. Zhou Man sighed and stepped forward to persuade the villagers, "Why do you have to fight with the county magistrate? The arrested Jia Dalan and others have already recruited everything, and even you have confirmed this, you already have. If you are accomplices and suspected of hiding, you still want to resist arrest at this time. If you hurt these adults, do you plan to turn the whole family into pirates and turn against the great Jin?" Because Zhou Man is a woman, her language is gentle, and she gave free medical treatment to the people in the village before, so everyone felt less resistance, so they could not help but listen more and think about it at the same time. "No, there is no need to think about it at all." Zhou Man's words seemed to have poured a basin of cold water on top of their heads, and their hearts will be chilled. It is impossible for the whole family to fall into trouble. This is not a chaotic world, this is a peaceful and prosperous world. If they really fall for the grass, they will just go up the mountain today, and they will be surrounded and suppressed by officers and soldiers tomorrow. Not to mention that they can't really have the whole family for one person. As a result, people who retreated in the crowd, especially those who did not have a good relationship with the arrested son, brother, quietly retreated. If everyone hadn't come, and a bandit in the family had a really bad reputation, they wouldn't have really come. 1/3 of the people dispersed immediately, and the rest were even more resigned. After looking left and right, they left some more, and the rest became more hesitant. A woman came up from behind, knelt down in front of Bai Shan with a plop, and shouted, "Sir, I only have one son, why don't you arrest me and let me replace my son?" Bai Shan looked down at her and nodded, "Yes." He tilted his head and summoned a clerk, "Tie her up." The woman was dumbfounded, and the crowd roared. Bai Shan looked at her condescendingly, "This county takes pity on your beloved son, and since this is the case, this county will satisfy you and take you back to the county government office. When the crime of your son is confirmed, I will carefully check the law book and see can you take the blame." "No, sir, you must promise me." Bai Shan looked down at her and asked, "What if I don't promise you?" "Woman. Then I will die in front of you." Bai Shan said, "If you die, who will take the blame for your son?" The woman opened her mouth and was speechless for a moment. "Bai Shandao, do you think you commit suicide? What responsibility does this county have?" The woman said with difficulty, "You are the county magistrate, don't you have sympathy? We are all your people. Bai Shandao, the people of Xiaoliu village and those who were looted by them are also citizens of this county. This county will not be biased, but at least justice can still be done. I don't sympathize with them. To sympathize with you." The hearts of the villagers were as cold as the hearts of the women. A clerk took a rope and came up to tie her up. The woman immediately got up and ran back, "I am not guilty, I am not guilty." Bai Shan smiled lightly, stopped the yeoman holding the rope, went to see the villagers, and asked, "Do you still decide to hide the bandits and resist arrest?" The remaining villagers looked at each other and left with torches. Bai Shan asked the soldiers to put down their bows and arrows, turned to Jia Li, and said, "This county will give you some people, let them go into the village, they are not allowed to gather, everyone goes back to their own homes, if there is a noisy gathering, they will all follow the bandits of the mountains. Buddies deal with it?" Jia Likang responded tremblingly. He secretly glanced at Zhou Man and said, "Sir, I'm afraid they won't listen to me anymore at this time. You are not only Lijhan, but also the patriarch of the Jiao family. This county thinks you will definitely have a solution, right?" Jiao Licain was speechless, so he could only lead people to chase the villagers, and they were not allowed to get together to talk again. As soon as they left, Zhou Man raised his eyebrows at Bai Shan and said proudly, "How is it, can I cooperate?" Bai Shan gave her a thumbs up, retracted it and said, "But you shouldn't mention that Yari Zheng." Man Bao was surprised, "Aren't you going to change Lijhan?" Bai Shan, "That's a matter of the future, and now I still need to use him to appease people's hearts. Jerry is not only about to be replaced, but also to be sentenced." Bai Shan turned his head and asked Lieutenant Dong, "Have everyone returned?" "No, there are still 5 teams that didn't come back. 3 ran away, and they chased after them." Bai Shan frowned slightly, turned his head to look at the night. "It's so dark, as soon as you run out of the village, it's not easy to catch it again, right? Even if the intersection is guarded by people." The people came back quickly. Only 2 teams of soldiers escorted 1 person back, and the other 3 teams returned without success. Zhou Man saw that it was the yeoman who was injured, and immediately stepped forward to look. After checking, she said, "Fractured." The yeoman was about to cry, the words in his ears were like "You're lame," and he couldn't speak while holding his legs. Zhou Man checked the bleeding port and said, "It will definitely swell up tomorrow. If you want to fix the bone, you must at least wait for the swelling to go away. There is also some bleeding inside. I will give you medicine first." Zhou Man dealt with the trauma for him. It should be something like a stone or a tree root that rubbed against him when he fell down. What matters is the broken leg. Zhou Man flipped through the medicine box and grabbed a medicine for him, and said, "This is medicine to reduce swelling and pain. You can drink a bowl later and you will feel better. When you go back to the county office, I will give you bone setting. Move." She took a wooden stick to fix his legs, and then looked at Bai Shan. Bai Shan has already arranged the next manpower, and he said to Zhou Man, "Are you going back with these people?" He said, "We went to Sun Lijhan with Lieutenant Dong and we will arrest as many of the remaining people as we can. These people will be brought back by Song Patrol for the time being. Announcement: it is not recommended for book lovers to give any more rewards. I want to add a monthly ticket and more. If you really love me so much that you can't extricate yourself, please give a maximum of $1. See you tomorrow." You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 2923. Zhou Man looked down at the soldier with the broken leg, a little worried. What if someone else is injured in the back? Bai Shan lowered his voice and said, "You gave us all the medicines for trauma, and 2 people ran away. Although there are people guarding the intersection around Dongyujuan, there are both fields and forests here. We have a short period of time. You can't catch anyone. The people who are guarding the intersection of Dongyujuan now mainly act as a deterrent, so that people who run away cannot go to Dongyujuan and other villages on the road, and Bai Shan and the others have more time." He glanced at Sun Licain and whispered to Zhou Man, "Even if Sun Li is coming forward, the possibility of us capturing everyone is not high. We are too few. The people from Dying Village and Xiaojing Village are the most important part. He must focus on escorting them back. Otherwise, he will be pissed off if he chooses sesame seeds and loses the watermelon. I made an estimate. If soldiers are sent over from Qingzhou City, they should arrive in the next 2 days. You and Song Patrol will escort these people back. If you meet these people on the road." Zhou Man immediately said, "I'll take them there." A smile flashed in Bai Shan's eyes, and he nodded, "Yes." He lowered his eyes and said in a low voice, "If Qingzhou City doesn't send reinforcements, you can only borrow troops. There are not many people Bai Shan can trust and use, and such a big event as borrowing soldiers can only be done around the clock. However, he is confident that Qingzhou City will send reinforcements, as long as the county magistrate Lu and the governor of Guo are not stupid." Bai Shan had already made arrangements before the manpower. Inspector Song took 70 soldiers and escorted the captured people back to the county office. Bai Shan and Lieutenant Dong Xian took the rest and Sun Li to Dongyuzhuan. But they did not leave immediately, but sat down to rest and wait for the dawn. The genius was bright, and the two teams who had just separated started to take out dry food to eat. After eating, Bai Shan took the people away to Dongyuzhuan. Zhou Man sent them away, turned his head to look at Song Patrol, and smiled. "Song Patrol, are we leaving now?" In fact, Song Patrol didn't really want to lead the team back to the county government office. He wanted to follow Bai Shan to arrest people, but it was a pity that Bai Shan insisted on choosing Dong County Lieutenant. He sighed and seemed to see the greater credit slowly flying away from him, so he could only nod and say, "Okay." So the group also set off. Those caught, as long as they were not seriously injured, were all tied up with their hands tied in a string and escorted forward. Those who were seriously injured and unable to move were put on a stretcher, and then selected a few that looked more pleasing to the eye and let them carry the stretcher. Except that a rope is tied around the waist, and the other end of the rope is tied to someone else's hand, which is also a string. In this way, not to mention these bandits, even the soldiers in their military camp, it is difficult to escape without special training. Because there are too many people in series, as long as one action can't keep up, the people on the entire line will be dragged down, and it's good that they don't trip themselves. This is the experience accumulated over the years by the county government in escorting exiled prisoners. A small team of 10 officers can escort nearly 100 prisoners. In addition to the deterrence of the court and the force of the officers themselves, the way of escorting them is also one of the important reasons. If it wasn't for these people who were only arrested, their wildness has not disappeared, and they are too reckless, they wouldn't need so many people to escort them back. The injured Yaman was carried by his own people, but he didn't feel well, he had been enduring the pain until his face turned pale. The Yaman who was familiar with him looked at him and hurriedly went to find Zhou Man. "Master Zhou, Brother Ping seems to be serious." Zhou Man dismounted to take a look, and seeing that his lips were white with pain, he said, "It hurts." After thinking about it, it was unrealistic to boil the medicine at this time, so she asked the person carrying him to step aside and use acupuncture to relieve the pain. It can't completely isolate the pain, it just makes him feel a little better. "Zhou Mandao, go ahead a little bit, and I'll have someone give you a painkiller when you stop and rest at noon." Ma Ping couldn't help but ask, "Sir, is my leg going to be lame?" "Zhou Man, no, if you take good care of it, there is a high possibility of returning to normal. The most important thing for fractures is bone setting and raw bone. Make sure that these two pieces, your bones will be fine." Ma Ping swallowed and asked, "Can you set the bone?" "Yes," Zhou Man told him with certainty, and added, "King Gong's leg is the one from our imperial hospital." "Ma Ping, I heard that the reason why Prince Gong didn't fight to be crown prince was because of his lame leg." Ma Ping's tears fell, but he was not comforted at all. Zhou Man looked at his reaction in confusion, and was about to ask in detail when a soldier rushed from the front and shouted, "Master Zhou, the Qingzhou reinforcements are here, right in front." Zhou Man's spirit was shocked, he patted Ma Ping's shoulder, turned and ran to the front to see. They were separated from the team for a distance, but it was not very far. The front was the turning place, and they heard the movement when they were turning. Therefore, Song Patrol asked the soldiers to go ahead to check the situation, and ran back to say that the reinforcements from Qingzhou had arrived. But at this moment, when Zhou Man ran to the front, The reinforcements hadn't been seen yet. "Joe man, didn't you say the reinforcements are here?" "Song Patrol, the scouts found out and have already contacted them." "Let's wait, here we go." Joe man looked up and saw two men in patrol uniforms rushing towards them with two teams of soldiers and horses. Except for the first few who rode on horses, the rest came running. She glanced at this speed, secretly calculated the distance from here to Qingzhou City, and after thinking about it, she came over as soon as she received the news. Otherwise at this speed, if there was a little delay in Qingzhou City, she would definitely not be able to do this. "Time to come." The two inspectors ran up with the soldiers. At first, they only saw Song Inspector and did not intend to dismount, but when they saw Joe man standing beside Song Inspector, and the other party was on the looking at their faces seriously, the two of them couldn't sit still. Glancing at each other, he still dismounted and saluted Joe man, "See Lord Joe as an official." Joe man nodded slightly and asked, "Did the county magistrate send you here, or did the governor of Guo send you here?" The two looked at each other and said, "It was Governor Guo and the county magistrate who sent us here together." Joe man tooted twice in his heart, looked behind them, and asked, "How many people did you bring?" Inspector Li said, "In addition to the officers sent by the governor's office and the county government, there are a total of 250 people." Joe man was very satisfied. Enough is enough. She turned to look at Song Patrol. "I'll take them to meet with Magistrate Bai, and you escort these people back." Song Patrol hurriedly said, "Master Joe, let me go. The injured people still need your diagnosis and treatment. Look at this. I'll grab 2 pairs of medicines to relieve pain and swelling in a while. You can ask someone to boil the medicine for him. If he wants to fix his bones, he has to wait for the swelling to subside, and then send it back to the medical office. There is still Master when there." He lowered his voice and asked Patrol Song, "You take them, can you hold them down?" Song Inspector looked at the two inspectors and was speechless for a while. Of course he couldn't hold back the two of them. Didn't he see that they didn't even want to get off the horse when they met? See you at 7. Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 2924. Inspector Song watched anxiously as Joe man led the two teams past them. A yaman couldn't help urging, "Song Patrol, let's go back, Brother Ping's leg still needs to be treated." Inspector Song glanced at him, then turned around and said, "Let's go. To go to Dongyujuan, you have to pass by the side of Xiaojing village and Dying village." Because of Joe man's remarks, the villagers were very dissatisfied with Jia Liking. Although he had a few yamen behind him so that they could not do anything, the verbal conflict was still okay. Some villagers said resentfully, "Li Chang, we are all from the same clan. If the children did something wrong, tell us what happened to the whistleblower. That's right, do you look good when they become bandits? Now our 2 villages are embarrassed and dead, you shouldn't tell the truth." Having explained that the mayor was exhausted one morning, he reluctantly said in a hoarse voice, "I didn't tell the truth, this is what the county magistrate found out by himself." No one listened to him. Lord Joe said that it was you who slept. If it weren't for you, how could the magistrates know about the robbery? Jia Liking was angry and shouted again. Master Joe clearly said that Jia Dalan and the others confessed themselves, and the bandit capital recruited. Can I, the Liking, continue to conceal it for them? The villagers did not listen at all. They only believed what they believed, and they only chose to believe what they wanted to hear. When the village chief was exhausted, Joe man led a large army and ran quickly along the road outside their village. That's right, there are more than 200 people. It seems that there are quite a few people, and each of them is either armed with a knife or a bow and arrow, which makes people very frightened. The villagers who were surrounding the Li Long and wanted to say something quieted down, watching in silence as Joe man led this group of men and horses running quickly from the road not far away, seeing that the direction was Dongyujuan. Jia Likane waited for them to run away before taking back his eyes and looking at the villagers. He said angrily, "You see? This is the reinforcements. Do the reinforcements understand?" He said, "Where does Bihai County come from so many soldiers and horses? Don't they have to be transferred from Qingzhou City? Do you know how long it takes to get from Qingzhou City to us?" Villager, I don't know. They haven't been there, how do they know? Many people have never even been to the county seat. Jia Likane, it will take at least 4 days to run like this. What does this mean? It means that the county magistrate Bai has already asked for help from Qingzhou City, and maybe he has asked for help before coming to our village. Do you really think that Xiaoliu village was robbed by them in vain? The county magistrate didn't say a word before, maybe he had received the news to investigate this matter. When the time came, I took them all away, captured the bandit leader, and the rest can run away. Seeing their silence, Jia Li exhaled a breath and said earnestly, "You have just seen that the county government can call in a large army, and if they resist stubbornly, they will not be surrounded by Dongyu village, but our dying village. And Koi village?" He asked, "Do you really plan to go up the mountain to become a bandit with that scumbag at home?" The villagers whose family members were arrested hadn't spoken yet, and some others were unhappy, and immediately shouted, "We are wronged, the rear, we can't let the Bai County magistrate really make our village a bandit den, the people of our family. But be honest." Jia Likane sneered, "Are you honest? You honestly made trouble with them last night." The villagers choked, paused, turned around and left, and dragged the family away. Go back, this has nothing to do with us." The crowd immediately dispersed by half. The other half were reluctant to disperse, and asked persistently, "Li Chang, Magistrate Bai won't chop off their heads, right?" Others worry, "There's a bandit at home, what kind of reputation do we have? What about the rest of the children? My God, I only have one son." The scene was full of crying, and Jerry's head hurt even more. At this time, Bai Shan and the others had already called all the young people on the list to Sun Likane's house in Dongyu village. Of course, the reason for this was that there were people from the county government office. One was to admonish them, and the other was to select government officers. Lieutenant Dong led the soldiers to hide outside the village and did not move. The people didn't come, some people were not in the village, and Bai Shan didn't mind. When all the people who could be called were called, he put down the tea bowl and got up and said, "Let's go outside the village and have a try." A young man asked, "What to try?" They looked up and down Bai Shan, not knowing who he was. "Bai Shandao, I'm an official who selects the yamen in the county government office. Jia Dalan said that you people are brute force and can't do anything else. It's okay to patrol the streets and arrest them in the county town, so I'll choose and see." Sun Likane's voice trembled a little, and he followed Bai Shan's words in a strong and calm manner, "Hu Lily, if you want to try it, just try it." The young people looked at each other in dismay, but seeing that Bai Shan had already led someone out, they could only follow with a wave of their hands. When people in the village saw these people, they had to dodge a little to the side, not to mention that the one walking in front was an official in official uniform. That's right, except for Bai Shan, everyone around him is wearing official uniforms. Walking out of the village entrance, there is a road in front, with woods on both sides, and fields behind on both sides. A few young people vaguely felt that something was wrong. Although the chief gave a reason, it was unreliable. They were very excited at first, but when they got here, they felt that something was wrong. Especially Li Chang's performance just now. So the young people looked at each other, and hesitantly took a few steps forward. Bai Shan noticed that their footsteps were getting slower and slower. Instead of stopping, he accelerated his pace and walked forward, dragging Sun Likane along with him. And soon distanced themselves from them. After walking for a while, Bai Shan turned to look at them, and said solemnly, "The county government has arrested the robbers." Everyone crouches down and obeys orders. When a young man heard this, he shouted loudly without waiting for Bai Shan to finish speaking, "Run!" Most of the people turned around and ran away, and a few remained in the same place with confused faces. After hesitating for a while, they also turned around and ran. They just jumped out of the field, and the soldiers next to Lin Ziyi and Mai Tuo rushed out and rushed towards them. They directly skipped the people who were stunned just now, and went to those who left first. The young man who ran first led the people to jump and ran forward, chasing a group of soldiers behind him, because the other party was familiar with the path, and the soldiers did not rest well last night, so they could only follow far behind. The young people jumped on the road and continued to run forward. As soon as they turned a corner, they collided with Zhou Man and others on horses. They almost couldn't stop and ran to the feet of the horses. Zhou Man was so frightened that he restrained his horse and was about to speak, when he heard a faint scolding in front of him, "Grandma, let's run and let go of arrows." If the county magistrate said that these people were unidentified mountain bandits, they would have shot directly with bows and arrows. When Zhou Man heard this, his eyes brightened, and he immediately waved at the soldiers behind him, "It's them, take it." Before Li Xianjian and the two could speak, the soldiers behind Hulala rushed to contain them, forming a siege situation with the people behind. The two inspectors. Li, who is the inspector? See you at 10 p.m. Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 2925. Sir, we ran 5. The two groups of soldiers and horses closed together, and after counting, they found that they still ran 5. Bai Shan, where did you go? The soldier pointed to the village, where a bunch of people with hoes and sticks were gathering, but they didn't dare to go forward because they saw that there were many soldiers here, and they all carried swords and bows. Of course, it's not easy for the soldiers to rush in to get people. What if the villagers have any luck? Bai Shan turned to look at Sun Likang. Sun Likang stepped out tremblingly, and could only lead the way, and went forward to persuade the villagers, "Folks, this is the county magistrate, they are here to arrest the bandits. You can't resist arrest." The crowd became restless, and many people looked suspiciously at the neighboring village. "Your son went to steal something." The other party's face turned pale, and he denied it immediately, "No." Bai Shan said solemnly, "The bandit leader has confessed, and many of them are from your village." "That's slander." Bai Shan nodded, "That's why this county asked them to go back to the county government to investigate. If it's fake, I'll let them go." "Can the county government arrest someone and let them go?" Zhou Man couldn't help but muttered, "How bad is the reputation of the county government? You need money to live in a prison cell. Why don't you have enough to eat and do nothing to support a group of innocent people?" Bai Shan glanced at her and said to the villagers, "If they are innocent, what is the county holding them for? Can't the county government pay for food and drink every day?" Someone whispered, "In order to ask us for money." When Bai Shan heard it, he said unceremoniously, "This county is from a family with great wealth. Not to mention that you are only one family, even your entire village and this county will not look down on you." The villagers seemed to be hit by an arrow in the chest. Although they relaxed a little after hearing this, they still felt very uncomfortable. "Bai Shandao, hand over the person, or the county will investigate your anti-arrest behavior." The villagers were numerous, and although they hesitated for a while, they did not walk away. Could he still catch them all? Seeing this, Bai Shan's face sank, and he turned to Sun Likang, who was beside him, and said, "Write down the names of those who don't want to retreat, and the grain seeds, farm implements, cattle, and relief for future disasters given by the Huiwai County government will all be deducted." Sun Likang's eyes widened. This. Fighting against the county government and shielding the gangsters has added a burden and disaster to the country and the surrounding people. It is already a relief for this county to not be charged but there is always a price to pay for doing things. Bai Shan squinted his eyes and threatened to be a little confused. The villager said solemnly, if anyone dares to harm an official, they will be taken down and convicted. Some people in the crowd retreated one after another, and some even went home with their hose on their backs. Dongyujuan is different from Dying Village and Xiaojing Village. There are too many bandits in those two villages, and there are many people who know the truth, so there is a sense of bandit. On the other hand, the village of Dongyujuan is large, and there are fewer people involved, and even fewer people know the truth. They are willing to help because of the same village and various relatives, but they can't toss themselves into a prison cell. In the end, Bai Shan caught the 5 people hiding in the village. Then they kept going to another village to arrest people. There were even fewer suspects in that village, so Bai Shan didn't need to lure the enemy, he just let the soldiers surround the village, and then went in calmly to arrest people. Unfortunately, some people were not in the village when they were arrested, so no one was caught. Including the 2 who escaped last night, a total of 8 people were not caught. Bai Shan asked Lieutenant Dong to bring 20 people to look for and arrest people, and he led the army to escort these people back to the county seat first. He said to Weidong County, we have arrested so many people with great fanfare. Now the relationship between the government and the people is probably very tense, so you have to be careful not to disturb the people. He said, you just search for 3 days. If they haven't come back after 3 days, and you haven't found anyone, then there is no need to guard them. Lieutenant Dong County should go down. Bai Shan and his party went back to the county government office. Because there were too many people arrested, and the prison could not hold so many people for a while, he vacated 2 rooms in the front yard of the county government office to lock the rest of the people, and let people. I went to clean the Chenghuang temple outside the city, and locked the rest of the people in the Chenghuang temple. The number of arrests was the largest in Bihai County in recent years, so when people were escorted into the city, many people stood on the side of the road curiously watching. Hearing that they were bandits, the people were still incredulous. We have bandits in Bihai County. Never heard of it? I think they are similar to us. Could it be a mistake? You just said that the county magistrate has wronged people for his political achievements and military exploits. Isn't that the end? I didn't say that, you said it. I said what I said, and I also said that this is impossible. If you pretend to lead the army, why would you escort people back alive, and kill them directly and put them on the newspaper? Isn't it better? How else can you do this? What does Lang Jun do to have such insight? No talent, just a storyteller in a restaurant. There was a lot of discussion, and some yamen came out with gongs and drums and banged, and said loudly, my lord said, tomorrow will be a trial in the county yamen, you can watch it when you have time, and you should think about the basics of being a human in your spare time. Minute. The yamen paused for a while, and really couldn't remember what the county magistrate said, so he didn't bother. Anyway, everyone will know when we go tomorrow. When Bai Shan returned to the county office, he found Zhao Wu and said, you should stare at the prison cell and the temple of the city god outside the city to see their reactions. These may not all be prisoners, we need to screen them out. Zhao Wu was entrusted with an important task for the first time, and was pleasantly surprised. Sir, shall I go alone? Bai Shan, call your brother, you just need to be responsible for talking. Zhao Wu's remarks are well known in the county government, and Bai Shan feels that he is in a good fight with Man Bao, so it is better to send him to the government office than to send him. Zhao Wu. He looked at the adults, and finally took the task silently and went to his brother. The detainees behaved differently, some were self-possessed, some were full of resentment, and some were weeping. Zhao Wu turned around and couldn't hold back, so he went to talk to those who were crying bitterly. Why are you crying? Why didn't you cry when you robbed people? You also killed people. The other party saw Zhao Wu squatting in front of the cell and talking to him. For some reason, the tears flowed even more fiercely. I didn't rob, I was wronged. I stole a chicken from the nearby village at most, how dare I rob? Zhao Wu asked him, whose chicken have you ever stolen? Zhao Wen twitched the corners of his mouth when he saw that he had opened the topic like this, but his eyes were fixed on the expression of the person who was speaking. The other party obviously choked, and his tears stopped. Is I also going to jail for stealing chickens? Let's do it, Zhao Wuidao said. My lord just said it some time ago, why can't you just do evil things because they are too small? Zhao Wen, don't do evil for small things. Yes, that's it, brother, you have a good memory. Zhao Wen ignored him. My eyes were very sore today, and I always felt a foreign body sensation. The eye drops didn't help. Then, when I wiped my face delicately after taking a shower, I vaguely saw a flash of golden light. So I stopped my movements, stared at myself in the mirror and observed back and forth for a few minutes, then started to experiment again and again, and finally pulled out a pale golden eyelash that was a little longer than the other eyelashes next to it from the bottom of my eye. It's almost transparent and very thin. The golden color looks very noble. Then I found tweezers and pulled it out. The foreign body should not exist, especially the foreign body around the eyes. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 2926. Bai Shan ascended the hall the next day, but with so many people, who should be interrogated first? After Bai Shan thought for a while, he simply escorted everyone to the hall. Jia Dalan and Feng Dazu, who were detained separately, were pressed and kneeled at the front. According to Feng Das-han, the people who can know all the members, except Jia Dalan who is Feng Dazu, were called together temporarily, and they all covered their faces at the time, that is, some people who were familiar with the same village, when they saw their bodies, as soon as he heard the voice, he recognized the other party. From the outer village, except for a few people who often hang out together, no one else could recognize it. But when they crossed it, Bai Shan had the confidence to pull out the radish and bring out the mud, and he could catch them all without falling. Bai Shan simply let them meet each other in the lobby. Including the 6 people arrested before, Jia Dalan, they arrested a total of 72 people, and now people are kneeling in the lobby, because there are so many people, they even kneel in the courtyard. Not only the Yamen officers of the whole county, but Song Patrol also came to guard with soldiers, and surrounded the yard tightly and seamlessly, with swords and bows in their hands. The people who came to watch could only stand outside the door and watch. Seeing so many prisoners at one time, the people were amazed, and when the discussion started, it couldn't help but be noisy. Bai Shan patted the gavel, and waited until the inside and outside were completely quiet before saying, Bihai County has always had a simple folk customs, and this county never expected that someone would loot villages, pedestrians, and businesses when there were no natural or man-made disasters. He committed a heinous crime, and this county will never forgive him lightly. The people kneeling in the hall, I think you are all familiar with each other, right? Bai Shan said solemnly, in the days to come, this county will examine each one clearly and rectify the people's customs. People from outside can come to watch, but the crowd must not be noisy and affect the hall. After Bai Shan announced the rules, he let Jia Dalan be pushed down first. Jia Dalan and Feng Dazu were escorted to their feet. When they turned to go out, they saw a lot of people knelt on the left and right behind them. Except for a very few people who looked up and stared at Bai Shan and Jia Dalan who stood up, the others everyone lowered their heads as low as possible, for fear that the people outside and the Yamen on both sides could see their faces clearly. Jia Dalan was dragged by the Yamen to the prison. He only had time to glance at him, but his heart was cold when he saw it. When he looked into his eyes, he saw all the people he knew well. Obviously, Bai Shan did what he said, and really arrested everyone. Coming. Jia Dalan knew as early as when he was caught that there was no way out. But now he couldn't help but panic. It turned out that he didn't say it, but there was still a little hope in his heart. If his people were still there, maybe they could rescue him. The big deal was that they really fell into trouble and started over. If Bihai County does not have a foothold, they will go elsewhere. But now, the most secret hope in my heart has also been shattered. Feng Dazu didn't think about it that much, he was still immersed in the killing of his third brother, and there was a lot of anger in his chest, so he just stared at Bai Shan and Feng Dashan angrily. As soon as Jia Dalan and Feng Dazu left, Bai Shan's eyes swept across the people below, and with a wave of his hand, a Yamen soldier stepped forward to take the person back to the prison, or in the houses on both sides of the county Yamen, and went to the hall. There is only one person left. The kneeling man quietly raised his head, and found that he was the only one who was a little dazed in the future. He looked up at Bai Shan in a daze. Bai Shan looked at him condescendingly, and when he saw him lowering his head to avoid his gaze, he said indifferently, "Go ahead." Say what?" Bai Shan patted Jingtang woodenly and said, "Tell me what your name is, where you are from, what year, month, day, and what day did you do bad things? If you have a question, it will be easier to answer." He said, My name is Urgu, a native of Dying Village, sir, I am wronged. I don't think I have done anything bad." Bai Shan said, "You deny it quickly enough, but the judgment is not just about listening to your confession. I will not only ask your parents and brothers, but also your neighbors, and those who have just been detained. People, many of them are your accomplices, right? If you don't confess what you've done together, there will always be someone who can't stand the punishment, or is the first to speak out in order to mitigate the crime. When you have to say it again, the county doesn't have that much time to listen to you." Bai Shan said with a sullen face, "This county gives you 10 breaths of time to consider whether to recruit or not. If you don't recruit, you will be replaced." Urgu hesitated, his mind was a little blank, and he couldn't make up his mind for a while. When he heard Bai Shan say, "The time is up, do you want to recruit or not?" The second dog has no recruits, one is that he hasn't figured it out yet, and the other is that he thinks that if he recruits, he will not be able to please him. Bai Shan nodded and waved his hand directly, "Pull the person down and send them to the temple of the city god." Immediately, 2 Yamen came forward and dragged the person down. Urgu was surprised, so straightforward? Before Urgu was dragged out of the gate, he heard Bai Shan casually say, "Next." So the Yamen officers opened the door on the side of the yard, and they seemed to be pulling a person out of it at random, and brought the person directly to the hall. The person who came out knelt on the ground tremblingly, and said with a trembling voice, "Sir, I recruited, we went to rob Xiaoliu village, but that was not what I wanted to go, I was forced." When Urgu heard this, he was so angry that he almost vomited blood, but he had no chance to go back and was dragged outside. Zhao Wu hid behind the soldiers and said proudly to Zhao Wen, "Have you seen it? I'm still very useful. If it weren't for me, the adults would not know who is the good guy. If you scare you will do all the tricks." Zhao Wen glanced at him and said, "If it wasn't for the adults, you wouldn't be able to think of so many questions yesterday." Zhao Wu did not refute, looked at the person kneeling in the hall, and hummed, "This person is still dishonest, what is forced, I heard what they said yesterday, clearly because of money and silk." Zhao Wen sneered, "Everyone is like this. When it is profitable, they rush to the front, but it doesn't matter whether it is good or bad, but once there is a risk, it will be bewitched by others." Zhao Wu glanced at his brother and couldn't help but say, "Brother, are you thinking too extreme?" Zhao Wen glanced at him and said nothing. With the first person to confess, the following interrogation will be much easier. especially since many suspects are locked up on both sides of the yard. Bai Shan and the soldiers and Yaman have instructed in advance that which room should be locked for whom, so that they can. Hearing the interrogation in the lobby, which ones need to be sent to the prison and locked up. This kind of group case is difficult to try because they have access to too much information, and the truth and falsehood are confusing, but it is easy to try. They will worry, they have not confessed, but others have confessed, and the confession and the situation will be very unfavorable to them. As long as this mentality is used well, it is easy to get the information he wants. Even if there are mixed truths and falsehoods, and there are many interrogations, he also eliminates the false ones and gets what he wants. See you at 7. Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 2927. Bai Shan asked, who proposed to loot Xiaoliu village? Jia Dalan, he said that Xiaoliu village is remote. As long as we go in and guard the intersection, the people inside will not be able to get out. Seeing that he had stopped, Bai Shan asked, what else? The other party moved uneasily and said, he said that they robbed Xiaoliu village once before, and nothing happened. Seeing that he was silent again, Bai Shan asked, he robbed him once, when did he rob him? I don't know, he didn't say it very specific, he just said that he and Dazu were able to repay the gambling debt because they robbed something from Xiaoliu village. Bai Shan frowned, why is there still gambling debt here? He asked, who were they who robbed Xiaoliu village for the first time? I know Feng Dazu and his two brothers. Feng Das Han is also in it. Basically, they are from Dying village and Xiaojing village, but I don't know the specific names. Who do you know about the looting of Xiaoliu village that year ago? The other party paused for a while and then reported more than a dozen names, saying, I only know them. How did you know they were there? I saw it, he said. Of course, Jia Dalan brought a dozen of us together and said that we usually have a good time and are familiar with each other. It is because they all agreed that I agreed to go. Bai Shan nodded and motioned to the clerk to remember his name, and it would depend on whether the next confession was translated. If not, most of these people did. Bai Shan asked, besides looting Xiaoliu village, which village have you looted? No, the other party said immediately, Lu village is because it is in the mountains, and we can only dare to have a small village with few people. How can we dare to change it to another village? Bai Shan asked, what about that person? The other party was silent for a while and then said, there are a few. When and where, who robbed? The other party said two people. When the second person was mentioned, there was a commotion in the crowd, and one person couldn't help shouting, Sir, I know the person he is talking about, it is my cousin, he is a businessman, and he went out to sell things in February this year, and never came back. Bai Shan's face sank, he slapped the gavel, and asked the people in the hall, you robbed the merchant, what about the merchant? He died, but we didn't kill him, he fell to his death. The other party said, we only robbed the money, but he didn't give it all, so he dared to hide it. Seeing that we were about to find it, he turned around and ran away. Well, we caught up to the side of the slope, he didn't run well and fell off the slope, hit a rock and died, but it's none of our business. Bai Shan's hands trembled with anger, and he slapped the hall and said, bold. If you didn't rob and chase him, would he fall to his death? Isn't this what you have to do? After getting angry, he realized that this was not good, so he had to restrain his anger again, and asked as calmly as possible, who were the people who followed you to rob? The other party reported 3 names, all of them from their village, and they usually hang out together. Bai Shan asked, anything else? Besides robbing these 2, what other bad things have you done? No. Seeing Bai Shan's disbelief, the other party quickly said, it's really gone, but I don't know if they have them. Bai Shan gave a jingle and said, take the person down and replace it with the next one. The next person happened to be the one who was confessed by the person who just went to court. When the two passed by, one lowered his head, and the other glared at each other fiercely. Apparently he heard the other party's confession just now. Therefore, as soon as he came up, he simply knelt on the ground and said, "That's right, it was Jia Dalan who asked us to go." He said that after the matter was completed, he would ask people to watch over the people in Xiaoliu village, so that they could not come out and report the crime. Let's not be afraid. Sir, what he said was wrong just now. He not only robbed two people, but also a caravan. The onlookers were in an uproar, and the more they heard it, the more they felt that they were a group of scumbags. On weekdays, they were stealing chickens and dogs, bullying neighbors, and sometimes collecting so-called protection fees at Daji. If there were passing caravans and merchants, they would also grab it. It's simply no evil. Bai Shan waited for him to take the initiative to confess before asking. Someone just confessed that Jia Dalan robbed him to pay off his gambling debts. Did he gamble with money? Gambling is too big. When you have money, you gamble with money, and when you have no money, you borrow money to gamble. Bai Shan asked in a deep voice, "Did you gamble in the casino in the county seat?" "No, the county town is too far away and the capital is too large. Where can we come here to gamble? We all gamble at the market." Bai Shan asked the matter in detail, and after he finished asking what he knew, he returned to the topic, "Do you know who participated in the looting?" He also reported the names of more than a dozen people, 2 more than the previous one. He said, "Although everyone was covering their faces at the time, I still recognized them. I often appear in big episodes. When we saw them, we bumped into one place in Xiaoliu village, and we knew who they were as soon as we saw each other." Bai Shan nodded, asked the clerk to write down, and then asked, "Besides robbing Xiaoliu village, what other evil things have you done?" "There are too many people involved this time. Bai Shan can interrogate 8 in a day, so it will take about 10 days. What's more, sometimes I run into some special suspects, ask a lot of questions, or the other party says a lot, and the trial can't be finished in an hour or 2. So sometimes only 4 were interrogated a day." So the news spread very widely. Not only the people in the county town rushed to come and watch, but also old people and young people from various villages in the countryside came to hear the trial, and finally even people from Qingzhou city came to see it. Anyway, it is not very far. Some people rushed to Bihai County early in the morning, and after the court trial in the afternoon, they could rush back to Qingzhou city. And some people find it troublesome, so they simply find an inn in Bihai County, and get up every morning to walk around the stalls in front of the county government office. Location. At first, he was able to buy it, but later he found that even a bunch of money couldn't buy a front row seat. He could only get up early in the morning and queue up by himself, and when the county government gate opened, he rushed in with people. There were so many onlookers and such a long period of time, which greatly stimulated the development of catering in the first street of the county government. Even Zhou Man's eyes were hot when he saw it, and he said to Bai Shan, "I don't know when the scene will be seen in front of my medical office." "Bai Shan, that's a good thing." "Why not?" "That means that there are more people who are sick and seeing a doctor, and it is no longer a matter of getting sick." When Bai Shan thought about it, it was true. Zhou Man and Bai Shan squatted on the threshold of the corner door to eat lunch. While watching the liveliness of the street outside, they asked, "How many people do you have yet to interrogate?" "There are still 18, Bai Shan said. "Now it has been found out that 4 people were caught by mistake, but they are not going anywhere. They usually do a lot of stealing chickens and dogs, otherwise Chang Jiali will not take them seriously. They're on the list. But Bai Shan is still very disciplined. Although he has been stealing chickens and dogs, the people will not report and officials will not investigate, so Bai Shan criticizes and educates the 4 people who have found out and then let go. See you at 9.